Hello, welcome back to another episode of the School of Self Worth. I'm your host, Nicole Song. I am so excited for you all to meet today's remarkable guest, Christine Chang. She spent 2 decades as a celebrity photographer, developing a keen eye for capturing people during authentic, in between moments. And her fascination with intimacy, identity, and relational awareness expanded her career into writing, podcasting, branding, and now film. She is the author of Show Up, Finding Love for Independent Women, and most recently, she directed her debut short film, Making Space, which is currently screening at film festivals throughout the United States. We had a remarkable conversation about self worth and relationships. You do not want to miss this episode. And if you are an Asian American woman who wants to stop being the invisible backbone and start showing up with authority in your leadership at work, DM me authority at Nicole Song on Instagram because I've got something over there for you. Okay, friends, let's dive into today's episode. Christine, welcome to the School of Self Worth. I'm so thrilled you're here joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be chatting with you about fun things.
So many fun things. I feel like you are up to just like all these really incredible big things. So, first, congratulations on the release of your movie.
Thank you.
How does that feel?
It feels great. I'm really proud of myself. My inner child, I think about 8-year-old me. And yesterday we premiered at the TCL theaters in Hollywood.
Mhm.
And that was a dream of mine when I was a kid. So I always think, like this is for you. And we did it. We're here.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Well, let's just start first. Tell us a little bit more about the film. And then, what I always love to hear is a little bit about the journey to like this next project and how, you talk a lot about how it's like I feel like there's a lot of self worth pieces in there. So let's just first hear about the film, if you could share with everyone what it's about.
Sure. My film's titled Making Space, a goodbye love story. And that's exactly what it is. It's a goodbye love story about a woman. She's in a situationship and she's learning self worth and to speak up regarding her needs and what she wants.
Mm.
And sometimes, if anyone's ever been there, that was me when I was younger, when I was dating, before I was ready to meet my person, before I met my husband. And it's rough when you're in it, and it's funny when you come out, you could see it so clearly, but it's growing pains. But the self-worth is something I love to talk about because especially for high performing women, I think usually there's a little bit of that work to do because that's why we're so successful in certain areas is because we
Mhm.
overperform because we feel like certain things are never enough. So for my film, I talk specifically of how it can creep into our romantic lives and how we show up in dating.
Well, what inspired you then for this specific topic? Because I'm assuming it's not like completely autobiographical, but there are a lot of components of your own journey that are in the story.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, for starters, I love talking about love and relationships whenever I'm with girlfriends. It seems to be a big topic.
Yeah.
And uh, I think, I mean, a lot of it is based on my own personal growth journey. I'll say I was in it for a good 6 years, figuring out my boundaries, uh, what I wanted, getting
Mhm.
clear on what I wanted, what the purpose of a relationship was for me. And it was such a big pain point for me that I knew others had struggled similarly when I began to open up and talk to other women. And I wanted to give other women permission to talk about it, be vulnerable, because for me, I had a tough time, I think, acknowledging that it was something I wasn't naturally good at, where in other parts of my life, I was pretty confident, like in career and things like that. I had friends, I have hobbies, I come from a good family, so I was wondering, well, like, what's going on here?
Mm.
Why is this sliver of life so challenging for me and why do I take things so personally where I feel like I'm not good enough if I'm not chosen because I don't feel that really in other areas of my life.
Mhm.
And I like doing personal growth, so I did the deep dive, and of course it goes back to childhood stuff of that. So I love opening that conversation for other women to have if they're wanting to go there and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really relate to this because I know we've just met and I've done many episodes on the podcast about dating and my own journey with that as well. Like, I went through a divorce a few years ago and it was very much about like seeing where I had given up my own worth and value to that relationship and like being chosen. And it's like, why do we do that to ourselves? And I always think that gets such an interesting place to be like, well, how did, like, where do we learn that? Where does that come from? So I'm curious for you, like, if you're open to sharing like a few of those pieces because I think it's like really relevant and I think it helps everybody. It helped me whenever I would look around and people would talk about it. And it was sort of interesting because it's so deeply personal when it's coming to dating because it's like the thing where you're just like, well, this is supposed to be the thing that I get to have. It's just like have the relationship and have the wedding and have all the things like you're sold that line when you're young. And then you're older and you're kind of like, well, I don't think I'm like that hard to get along with. Like, why is this so difficult for me? Or like, why is dating so hard? Or why will no one stick with me? Like those kinds of questions used to always come up for me when I was dating. And then I really had to work through all of that after I was going through my divorce of like, this isn't actually about me and what do I have to learn about myself? So I'd love to hear for you, like, what were some of those pieces you started to learn? And I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, like both like what you learned, but also too, I wondered if like there were pieces of like being Asian American that also played into that too.
Sure. Growing up, I was applauded when I achieved something. My parents value education a lot, being, traditionally Chinese, and that was their ticket to come over to the States,
Mhm.
was their education. So they valued that a lot. My mom was pro tennis player. I mean, dragon lady mom, excellence. That's when I got the applause. So I always felt like I needed to perform and earn things. And while that made me good at gymnastics and get good grades and things like that, it poured over into my romantic life, thinking that I needed to earn and perform.
Mm.
It didn't feel natural just to be me and be loved for being me without the achievements or being really interesting. So I was definitely overperforming. And basically, so I wasn't being the real me when I showed up on dates or in relationship. And I think people pick up on that
Mhm.
when there is a lack of self-worth. And I've gone on dates with people too where it was flipped around. But we know how that feels. And it was just so, oh, because it just happened for such a long time where I realized I'm like, something needs to change here because something's not working. What are my patterns? So I would, because I thought I had to earn, I would naturally be attracted or go after men who weren't completely available because that felt
Mm. Yeah.
familiar to me. My parents were really busy with work, and there was some aspects of neglect there, not intentionally from them, but um, yeah, that I felt like I need to be like, hey, I'm over here, choose me. And I did that, I think, enough times to the point where you get tired of your own stuff that I began to heal and choose differently. So that's, I would say that's one of the my main pain points of self worth and why I dated the way I did for so many years was thinking that I had to earn love.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you say so many things that are really profound, I think, in general in that journey that are very similar to mine as well, where you're like, well, I always got rewarded for doing things a certain way and always like, yeah, outward on the outward sense, people be like, oh, you're so successful, but then not feeling like that internal for me was like, always like I never internally felt successful. So then when it came to dating, it was really hard to feel like anybody would choose me. And yeah, and like you, I would also choose people who are a little bit unavailable, like not quite there because it's like, oh, well, having to strive like in the relationship felt really normal to me versus being like, oh, it's just like okay to be accepted fully for who I am as I am.
Yes. Yes, and that it feels so nice to have that now. I didn't realize like how unfamiliar it felt. And I think the way that it felt when I was younger was boring, like this is it. This doesn't feel what I thought romance was supposed to feel like, calm, safe. because I'm used to a lot of stimulation, and like you said, we tend to like to be in that climb, right? There's a certain satisfaction there too when I think of career things, and or if you're like trying to reach a goal with like learning to snowboard or something like that, we like being in that space. So just sitting and relaxing, and I I remember when I was ready for a serious relationship, like truly ready. I said it for many years, but the way I was choosing and dating, I wasn't. But when I really was, I got clear. I'm like, I want home to feel like a sanctuary where my nervous system is just relaxed. I think I get enough stimulation from the outside world. Life is already hard enough. I want home to feel just peaceful and like I can be me. That was like my top priority. I want to feel like I can be me and loved for me.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And so what would you say then, I think that a lot of times people are like, "Okay, like what's the tactical?" Because a lot of the times this piece is really hard to like at least identify with for yourself. You're like, "Wow, I was dating from this place of lacking self-worth." And I had to really watch myself because I used to always when I would date be like, "Oh, do you think I'm cute? Are you attracted to me?" Like those were all ways I gave it away, like my power constantly. And then when I started dating my husband, I had to really just be like, Nicole, you're not going to say those things. You're just going to assume because he is here that those things are true. And then sometimes when I would talk to my husband about it, he'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't want to be here with you, and we would have those conversations. But I'm curious for you, like, how did you start to notice like your own patterns and actually start to address them when you were dating people?
Sure. Well, in the frustration dating enough unavailable men, I just feeling like crap, basically. I mean, I would just be in tears, with the same pattern, same guy, either fresh out of a relationship or they need healing. That was another pattern I fell into for a while. Oh, I could fix him. But just taking that self accountability, and my mom's always been good at that, at self awareness. And I think I get that from her of what am I doing here? I'm the common denominator here. What am I doing here and why am I doing it? So I read books. I read a lot of books, but I would say and I did therapy. I did conferences, personal growth conferences, and I will say the most effective for me was getting other people involved because they really mirror back to you who you currently are and who you're being, and especially dating. I understand that sometimes there's times that we want to be alone and heal in our cocoon, but really, I learned the most about myself when I was out there dating and learning. And so developing that self-love, that was a big component, was not beating myself up over making mistakes or when I was learning, because that's what life is. And that the way I learned to talk to myself was the way that I was parented. So pretty tough. And I know how it made me feel as a kid, and it didn't make me feel good, like judged, criticized. And so when I talk to myself now, it's a lot more gentle and it's a lot more empathetic. And because I had some friends that were just great about that. And I'm like, gosh, I feel really good when I talk to them. Like, can I talk to myself like that and also give that back to other people? I lost my train of thought.
That's normal. Well, you were talking about, yeah, like how do you start to pay attention to like how you're talking to yourself to address like how do you start to date differently and attract people who are come in it for different reasons too, right?
Yes, yes. And the healing component's a big part of it. For healing, I mean, there's the easier things are the self-affirmations, which I will say did work for me. When my
Mhm.
husband, one of the first times he came over, I had these sticky notes like hidden in my medicine cabinet, and all over it says, "I'm good enough. I'm good enough." And he's like, "Okay, miss, I'm good enough." So that's a really easy thing to get started, but I will say the most effective was having conversations with my parents.
Mm,
A lot of the stuff, as I said, stemmed from childhood, and there was stuff with my mom and stuff with my dad, which I wasn't aware of. I've always been a daddy's girl, so I wasn't aware that I had stuff with him.
mhm,
And what helped that was doing a personal growth course called, oh, I don't know if they call themselves personal growth. It's called Landmark Education, and it really
mhm.
helped me with my communication. And with my mom, because she was so tough growing up, I was always distant from her. And through doing that program, I got clarity of I need to have a conversation with her. And so I called her up and uh, I said, which was really awkward for me, I said, "Hey, mom, do you know that I love you?" And she's like, "What?" I said, "Do you know that I love you?" And she's like, "No, I don't know that. I don't know that all the time. Like from your sister,
Mm.
yes, but from you, not all the time. I feel like there's something in you that either you've resented or have had against me." And from there, we were able to kind of open things up, a lot of unsaid things. And that was really good. That helped a lot. And really, if you can get through this with your parents or sibling, whoever that person might be for you, I found for the rest of my relationships, it was so easy once I was able to do that one. And then for my dad, uh, what came up in therapy was I didn't realize my parents' divorce had bothered me a lot more than I thought it had.
Mm.
And he's so patient and he gets me. We can communicate almost without speaking. And I really loved that. But I didn't realize that I had stuffed down 12-year-old me emotions from when they had gotten divorced. And uh, for him, he never really took accountability for his part in that. And I just wanted him to know. And I didn't realize how important it was just to self-express, just so that he would know. And I didn't need anything from him. I just wanted him to know. So I wrote him a letter and I said, "Hey, Dad, this doesn't change any way about how I feel about you. I just want to acknowledge, because it's come up for me recently, of how painful the divorce was when I was a kid, where I felt like you were selfish. You didn't think of mom, you didn't think of your family, you didn't think of your kids." And um, it really hurt my feelings. And I've processed the work, and like I said, it doesn't change how I feel about you, but I just want you to know. And then I don't think he responded to my email, but I didn't need him to. I just remember feeling relieved when I sent it. And then the next time I saw him, I live in LA, there in the Bay Area, and I walked into his office. A- And I think at that point I had forgot I had sent it too. And then I just saw he looked really different. His shoulders were a little, slumped down, and he couldn't look at me. And he said, "I don't know why I'm so emotional right now. I'm so sorry." And then in that moment, I realized the impact that I can have, like how important it was for me to communicate, my feelings and how others impact me. That was a really big piece, actually, in dating, of letting people know. Not always like, "It's okay. It's okay." Like, actually, sometimes I'm not okay. Sometimes I'm not okay. And it's okay to tell people that. And it's still a challenge for me, because you have to be really vulnerable to do that. And with my husband, stuff has come up recently too, where I'm like, "Am I okay?
Mm.
Am I?" And sometimes things seem subtle. It's not a big deal. I was taught like power through it, but I'm like, you know what? If I don't address this now, it's going to be like a death by a thousand cuts thing. So, anyways, having those conversations with my parents really, really helped me on my healing journey, and then helped me. I think as I got more clarity of what I wanted as well, and what I was looking for, how I wanted to feel, and certain core values and qualities, for example, integrity, that made me date a lot faster. And the self love, because you might know certain things, right? Of dating, like, "Oh, I should go for this, or I know he's not good for me, but why do I keep sticking around?" Once you have the self love there and the clarity, because the clarity gives you the confidence to not question your choices. Like, "Yeah, I'm gonna leave." Like, no, that's a sign he definitely doesn't have integrity. The words and
Mm.
actions aren't matching. So I learned to date a lot faster after I got that clarity and doing the healing work.
Well, what you're saying and what you shared about with your conversations with your parents reminds me so much about like when my my clients want to date. Like we work on that, especially in my mastermind. And, I talk to them a lot about emotional availability. And I'm like, when you want an emotionally available partner, like it has to start with you. And if you can't do it yourself, you're never going to have a partner who does that. And it can be hard. And I think, especially when you grow up Asian American or like have parents who don't do that. Like my parents did not demonstrate or teach me emotional availability for lots of different reasons, right? And then I had to really figure that out. And it is a skill and it takes practice. And it's really, really hard when you're doing it at the beginning. And even to this day, like I would say, I also struggle with it. Sometimes I'm like, annoyed with my husband or something's going on. And I have to really address like what's happening for me emotionally and then being open about it so we can have an actual discussion versus me just like lashing out or being angry or annoyed and just like kind of fussing at like the surface level thing of like whatever would be like you didn't clean up right or like we just traveled to Taiwan and you didn't bring this thing for the baby and like like that kind of stuff can really be covering up what's underneath and what's going on. And so I thought what you shared also was like a really great demonstration of it. Like you doing it with your parents is also probably what really opened you up to be able to do it with partnership.
Yes, and it's like you said, it's definitely a muscle and it's a
Mhm.
skill set and it takes practice. It's not I mean, I learned through doing the personal growth, it's not like, okay, I did this, I had to talk with my parents, and now the rest of life is going to be great because new things come up. Like you said, like you have a young baby and you're
Mhm.
traveling and new things kick up, and really not forgetting about yourself and being in tune with your own needs and building resentment, right? Like you said, if even if it's like a little annoyance, like what is under that? Usually it's like something repeated, right? That's happening
Totally. Yeah.
that we're not addressing. So I mean, I'm still learning. The work never stops, right? He and
No.
I just celebrated 10 years together, and I've just grown so much in the last 10 years. And for both of us, I mean, people, we put this pressure on ourselves like, oh, we should know how to parent, we should know how to be married. Does not come with a handbook. It's both our first
Mhm.
times doing this, and I think it's okay to not know. Like, I'm
Yeah.
learning. Everyone's just trying their best and learning.
Well, how did this come into play then for you in terms of the kind of movie? Like, how did you decide that this was the topic? Was it just because you love the topic? And then what did you want to really convey and like have people, it sounds like, to really get and learn from what the person is going through in the movie and have that like reflect into their own lives.
Sure. What the movie is a lesson off my book. It's titled Show Up, Finding Love for Independent Women. It's available on
Mhm.
Amazon. And I had wrote the book to help women who were in the space of dating, to help them gain clarity, the self-worth and confidence, because I knew how frustrating it was when I
Mhm.
was there. So at the end of each chapter, there's, some simple questions I asked to help you gain clarity. And so the film was born off of a lesson off that of self-worth. And it's a short 15-minute film, but it's the lesson of, yeah, getting clear on what you want and communicating that to someone, and also sticking with it through action. And I think for a long time too, I think it's kind of frustrating when but then your actions don't match what you know. Like, I know he's not good for me. Why am I sticking around? Why am I still going to the party with him? And now when I hang out with friends who are in that space, and usually they're younger, and
Yeah.
I'll be like, why are you still dating him? You just said you saw him like dating someone else. And it's messy. Life's messy. It's very rarely a really clean hero's journey arc. So I wanted to show that in the film, that it's messy. You might know something, but it's kind of like a toggling back and forth until you learn and you finally get to that place of, you know what, I'm going to make this decision to choose me. But even when
Mhm.
you know you're making the right decisions, the emotions that come with it, it's not easy. You might still be really sad and disappointed. And that's okay. I think that's part of life. When you really like someone, you're putting that all on the table, that you're going to get crushed. And if you don't care, I see some women, high performers, they swing the other way. Like, I don't care that, and I'm like, you're never going to build anything with depth if you don't let yourself be vulnerable like that. It's okay. You're upset because you really liked this guy and you really hoped that it would work out, and it didn't. And that's required, I think, when you're dating to put yourself out there.
Well, I always think about it too, yeah, because I was definitely that person who always tried to protect myself after, like, my very first, like, high school heartbreak. I was like, "I don't ever wanna feel that bad again," and so, like, I never really wanted to open up to people, and then, then opening myself up and then going through a divorce, I was kind of like, "Okay, like, that is not what I signed up for either," and at the same time, going through that is what allowed me to have, like, the depth of, like, that safety and security with my husband now, where it does feel easy, it does feel safe, like, I don't worry about our relationship, and I know I can tell him anything and it's gonna be okay, where I have never actually felt that before, and I don't think I understood that before having it, like, having it is now I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is possible," but I didn't really used to think that that was possible. I think I always felt like it was always gonna feel a little bit, on the edge, a little bit challenging, like, a little bit I don't know, and I'm not saying that we don't work on a relationship because we definitely do, but it was more just like this feeling of like, "Oh, yeah, like, you're my person, I'm yours, and we're gonna figure it out no matter what's going on between us." But it is like it's an interesting thing. It's like when your nervous system gets to the place where you can actually accept that having safety and security, like, I think it's very normalized in culture to have very dramatic relationships and dramatic dating, and it makes for good TV and social media. It's like fascinating. Like, when I was dating after divorce, all my friends were like, "Yeah, tell me more stories." And I'm like, it's really not that fun. Like, it's not that fun to have like dramatic dating. But then when you finally have that, yeah, peaceful place, like, it just feels so different. And it's just really gratifying.
It is. It's totally different. There's a single headspace, which I mean, being single is I think it's so fun too. But there's also I just tell my friends who are single that it's just different, right?
Mhm.
It's different. It's just a different headspace when you are in it with someone. And like you said, things aren't perfect, but it's the willingness from both parties, to work on things together. You're living life with someone considering someone else, and making that shift. So for anyone who's been single for a long time and can't seem to like shift into or like accepting somebody, the acceptance
Mhm.
piece is huge. It's we're not perfect. No one's easy to be with long term. I think annoyance is the cost of an intimate relationship. You're going to get annoyed. We cannot escape that. Um, but yeah, I just think it's funny because once it clicks and you see it, like you
Mhm.
said, like, oh, like it's here. And it happens really fast. You're like, oh, it's here. There you are. That's how I
Mhm.
describe it. I don't know if that makes sense to people, but when I met my husband, it wasn't these like raging butterflies. It was like, hmm, like I'm curious about you and you feel like home in a good way, home
Mhm.
in a healthy way. And I want to get to know this guy more, and it felt different with him. It felt calm, it felt grounded. And I think for some other guys I used to chase, like maybe for a fling in Bali or like a short term, sure, choose the roller coaster guy that like whips you around. But I was like, I want to get married. I want a long-term relationship. And at that time I wasn't sure if we wanted kids or not, but looking for qualities of would I want this guy, would I want to raise kids with this guy?
Mhm.
And my dad would always say, when you're ready for a long-term relationship, you're going to choose differently. When I was younger, I would always think, that sounds so boring. And of course, he's right, because you do look for different things when it's long-term. My favorite thing about my husband, patience. He's grounded,
Mhm.
kind, reliable, and if you're a person who associates safety and reliability with boring, but I've never heard a woman say like I really want an unreliable man.
No. Yeah.
We don't say it, but sometimes you'll choose the person who's kind of unpredictable. And I'm like, that's not a good quality for someone to build a life with.
No, I'm totally with you, and, like, it's interesting because safe and reliable, like, it's just not sold to you when you're younger as, like, the quality of the you're like, "Oh, I want the butterflies, like, I want the chemistry, I want all of these things," and, like, you can have all of those things, and you can also have safety and reliability and someone you can count on, which I think sometimes people forget. that like that is, especially if they're your person, like if you're in the hospital, can you count on them? Like those are
Yes.
qualities to think about. And like I think about when I was giving birth to my son last summer, like my husband was like such a rock for me. And I remember even we were going in, I was having a C-section and they were asking me about like some drugs, and we had talked everything through in advance. And he said in the moment, he was like, wait, you said you wanted to be really present for this, like do you want that? And I was so glad he was there advocating for me that way, because I like it sort of went over my head what they had said, because I was getting so much information from all the doctors. I was just like, oh yeah, like whatever, that's fine. And he's like, no, you actually don't want that. And I'm like, you're right, I don't want that, thank you. And like I was so grateful to have like a ground. And my husband's very similar to yours, like grounded, patient, like really listens. And so that in that moment he could help me. And like that's and like nobody puts that on their dating profile. Like you're gonna make sure I don't take the drugs I don't want to take in the hospital. But like you want that person, you know what I mean, who's there for you in that moment.
1000%.
Yeah.
I usually remind my friends who are dating, I'm like, anyone can show up fun and positive when things are great.
Hmm.
I'm like, what about when things aren't great? Parents dying, when you
Totally.
hit rock bottom, when physically, you're giving birth and you like can't get up. How are they going to show up? And I think it would be for me like so painful if I needed help and my partner wasn't willing to help me. Like the neglect I think would just be too painful because I've experienced that before where
Mhm.
yeah, I wanted someone to show up for me and letting someone show up for me. And that's a big one
Mhm.
is letting people help you. Because if you're a high performer and you're independent, I mean, I did do a lot of work of because I want to do everything myself, and I've been disappointed by people, or I think I could do it better and faster.
Yeah, totally.
And I remember at one point I had girlfriends over. I think this was in my like late 20s, and they were helping me clean up after we had a potluck, and I was so uncomfortable letting like they're cleaning my house. I said, "You guys stop, just go home. I'll take care of it." And one of them said, will you relax and let us help you? And in that moment, it clicked for me. I have a problem with this. I don't let
Yeah.
people help me, so I don't let people love me. So with guys,
Mm.
I remember they would offer to do things. I'd be like, no, 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 no. No, no. When they genuinely want to drive far to come see me, and I think that was a self-worth thing too. Like, I don't want to inconvenience people. That was a big thing because my mom always said that growing up, like, don't inconvenience people. Like, relationships are inconvenient sometimes. I
Totally.
actually think the best relationships, and I say this meaning in the best way, like the best friendships really are useless. Like they don't, they're the 4 a.m. friends that will show up for you if you need. They don't care what you do for work. They're useless. Like my best friends could care less what I do for work, and I just know
Mhm.
if I need something at 4 a.m., they would be there. And it's inconvenient. I think now we try to like maximize everything. Does this work good for me? We've kind of lost the, I'll go pick you up at the airport from
Mhm.
LAX.
Totally.
Right. Right. And my husband's so good at that. And so sometimes it's not practical. I think, oh, I'll just take an Uber back.
Right.
He wants to pick me up. I'll let him pick me up.
Yeah.
And there are times where maybe an Uber makes sense, but we don't always have to be so practical like that.
Yeah. Well, I would love to switch gears a little bit around the movie, because this is not your background. Like your background is in photography, right? So
Correct.
what had you want to do, like make such a dramatic shift in terms of the work that you're doing? And I mean, I don't know if it was like a creative impulse or what it was, because you probably had to learn a whole bunch of new skill sets to do this. So could you talk about that transition? Because that is just fascinating whenever people make a big switch like that. How did that even start for you? And like, what was that process and that learning like?
Sure. So with photography, about I think 7 to 8 years in, I had already known I don't want to do this forever. I began as a wedding photographer, which was I'm naturally drawn to seeing connection and love. And so I loved it. I got to travel the world and tell people's love stories. But I when something's not aligned with me anymore, it's very loud. I
Mm.
feel it. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, there's something here that wants to expand or grow, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like. So I continued with photography, and it started to feel less inspiring and more like a job, which everything does at some point. And this was a very, very long process. And actually, what helped me shift was at the pandemic. Sometimes things blessing in disguise. When all events were canceled, I said, okay, I think this is my opportunity now, since I can't shoot any weddings or events. Where else can I grow to step into the next version of me? And with a film, so I've always had a writer in me. I blogged for over 20 years, and I shared my work along with my heart. It was kind of like my online journal. And funny enough, that's why people hired me, is because I always say, like, pretty pictures are a dime a dozen.
Mm.
It's who you are, especially as an artist. People are really drawn to that. So I think the people who hired me really liked that. And with the writing, I always wanted to make a film, to make movies when I was a kid, but I think as an adult, I was really afraid to say it because there is a chance of failure. This is a skill set I don't have. I didn't go to film school. The photography background helps a bit, but I realized I was afraid to say it. And then one day, I was like, I'm going to put this on my list of goals. I've always wanted to make movies, so I'm going to make my first short film. That's my one big thing I'm gonna do. And so I wrote the script, and with support from friends, got it done. And I realized what kicked up for me was I was nervous. Like, for the first time, I was so confident with my work as a photographer, right? I felt like I could photograph a wedding with my eyes closed. But with this, it was new, and I'm writing it, so it's being seen in a new way. And I noticed the emotions coming up when I let other people read it for the first time. I sent it to my two friends who are actors, and they're the leads in the film. I said, "Hey, I wrote the script and I kept you in mind. Would you be willing to do this short film?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm nervous." I haven't felt this in a long time. So the first step is getting your work out into the world, right? You do it and
Mhm.
then you share it. And Rick Rubin has a great quote that says, you're successful the moment you share your work with the world. It's not the accolades, it's none of that. It's putting yourself out there. And I agree with that so much. And lucky for me, my friends said they were willing to do it. Um, they were phenomenal. And they had been acting for 20 years. So that helped me a lot because
Mm.
directing actors is new to me. And so feelings of incompetence, of, like, what am I doing? Like, who am I to think that I can do this? To say I'm a director, I'm a filmmaker. But I think there was an underlying belief in myself, like, I can do this. And I'll credit my mom for that, for raising us to give us confidence in feeling like I'm capable. I might
Mm.
make mistakes, and I probably will, because this is my first short film. It's going to be a learning curve, but this is the price to pay. This is what I have to do to make my dreams come true. Get the first one done. I'll learn. And you know what? They'll get better. And I think I'm realistic with expectations too, of, if it's my first one, all I have to do is try my best. That's what my mom said. She always, like, just try your best. And uh, from there, you might make some mistakes, you'll learn, and you'll know for next time. So the learning curve, there was a ton. There's so many moving parts with a movie. Luckily, I have some friends who were able to guide me, but I think I also learned best by just jumping in and doing. So there were certain things that I learned on the fly, on set, or maybe in the editing room, noticing, like, oh, I should have done that. We should have got that shot.
Mm.
Some mistakes that cost money, extra money, like, oh, we have to hire, virtual effects to change the time on the clock because I didn't take the batteries out in the back. And so it was like, when we were putting it together, so he had to, like, change the hands back. Like, okay, that was a $500 mistake, but I'll know for next time. But again, it's that self-talk of being kind to myself, of not beating
Mm.
myself up over the fact that I'm learning.
Yeah.
Like I'm learning and it's okay. And you know what? I'm really proud of myself for making this leap. My first step of making my dreams come true and just seeing it done. And you know what? It's not perfect. When I look at it, I'm like, okay, going back, I would have done this differently, but I'm happy. I'm like, the story's there. I
Mhm.
feel it. And now I have audience feedback since we've been at had some screenings already. Other people feel it. And that to me is goal accomplished. P- People understand what I was trying to do. That my crew, my team, and then now the audience, they can feel it, and that was my goal. And last night, premiering at the Beverly Hills Film Festival, that was just kind of it just made me so happy because it might not be the biggest film festival in the world. It's not an Oscar, but I just know that I'm doing the things and they're tangibly. I'm like, I'm here on Hollywood Boulevard and I wanted to do this since I was a kid and I'm here. And eventually we'll see where it goes. I'm going to make more films and it's really a passion of mine and it really, really lights me up. So I think it was something in me that I didn't want to ignore because I would have regretted it if I never pursued it.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a great perspective. I feel like sometimes, we get these calls to do things and they feel so big and scary, like making a film. And then, but you also know the cost of not doing it, is what it sounds like.
Yes, I think a part of me would have been really sad if I never pursued it.
Hmm.
And as I'm getting older, I don't want to get too comfortable. I always want to grow, and it gets harder. I think, as at least for me, as I've gotten older, you can get comfortable. I'm like, I always want to be learning and be curious and live to my potential as well. And for filmmaking, there's so many moving pieces. I think I thrive also when I'm learning. I think I hit a plateau with the photography.
Hmm.
And so it was time that I need to I've always been kind of free spirited too. So there was something, as I said, it was very loud and it was calling me and to do it. And I think a lot of people, because it's scary, they want encouragement or permission to do it. I'm like, give it to yourself. Like, do it for the kid you or the future you. Do it for that person. And my mom always said, yeah, like do it for yourself. And when it comes to your career and work, it's the money, all that, it's for you. And you'll feel so good about yourself that you do it for you. Like you spend your own money. It's different from if you spend someone else's money. And she's right. There is a satisfaction in that. And I've learned also just to, yeah, if anyone's going to do it, like it's your life. If you want to be happy, all of that is your job. Even being married, I think I've fallen in a trap too of blaming. You're not doing this and putting things onto my husband where it's really not his job. Where I'm like, wait, is this him or is this me?
Hmm.
The happiness, like if you've ever thought of like changing partners and sometimes there are fundamental reasons why you would split with someone and a different partner would be better suited. But sometimes it's just like, is this a me thing? Like, if I switch partners, would I still have the same thing come up? Like this
Right.
dissatisfaction in life, or, is it within myself and my career, or is it really him? So, always being clear on that. And most times it comes back to me. I'm like, you know what? This is my life. It's my responsibility. I want to be happy. I want to be thriving. I know what it feels like to be depressed and not feeling great about myself. And I I think I love myself too much to just let myself, you know, stay in something that I'm not happy in.
Mm. Yeah, that's so powerful to love yourself that much. I feel like that's always the journey, right? To be like, okay, like I am so valuable and so worthy and so loved that I'm going to do the thing that feels really hard and scary, even just because like it's just like that's the direction I need to go for myself. So that's like a huge statement. I'm
Yeah.
curious, like when you were in like really hard moments with that film, like how did you get yourself back to that place over and over
Oh
again?
my gosh. When it's hard, I mean, A lot of emotions kicked up that were not familiar to me all at
Mm,
once. Anxiety, normally I'm very controlled and grounded.
mhm,
The anxiety, and it manifested in I don't act out when I'm anxious or yell or anything. Like my stomach did not feel good. I lost a lot of weight actually. I didn't sleep well. That's very unlike me. I got nervous. I wanted to throw up at certain parts. And all of that I knew, I just kept telling myself, I'm like, this discomfort that you feel is kind of what is required. Get curious, like what's coming up here. And it's okay. Like it's okay if you're nervous. It's your first time doing this.
mhm,
And I think approaching it with curiosity instead of judgment, I naturally can be pretty judgy. And I've really have it's a muscle, to learn to stay in a curious, headspace for others, but also myself of what's going on here. And being aware enough to not push that onto other people.
mhm,
My husband was so supportive through the whole process, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And also the cast and crew. I'm very particular of who I surround myself with, and um, I think kindness is just very important to me. And I think because you spend so much time, if you can choose of who you're spending time with, do these people make me feel good and
mhm,
energized, or are they draining me? And there's going to be times in life where we don't have that choice through certain work and things like that. But if I can choose, because it's your health and well being too. Are these people supportive? Do I feel like I can pour my heart out or be like, oh my God, I don't feel good. I'm anxious, that I can also just be in that space and not pretend like I have to hold everything together so perfectly. Like it has to, do I have to look like I'm confident and I have it together? Or can I have it together? Does that also look like being honest and being like, you know what, guys, I'm really nervous right now and I don't know what to say.
mhm,
That's okay. And then you give
mm,
other people permission to be like that too. And that's what I love about you is when we hopped on the podcast, I'm like, okay, great. Like you don't have to be perfect. It's okay if the baby
mhm.
cries in the background. Is my mic working? Is it plugged in? Do I have makeup on? You know what? This is good enough. And it's okay. It's okay.
Totally. Well, I mean, I was going to say that I feel like I love how honest you are and vulnerable about like I felt sick. I felt like I wanted to throw up because, I work with women a lot on really understanding like their calling and where they're stepping into and like owning their authority in a different way. And I'm like, sometimes when you do that, it's going to put you into situations where you feel like exactly how you did. Like you feel like you want to throw up, you feel sick, you feel so much anxiety because you're really pushing into your limits, and when you push into your limits, it can manifest very much in like these physical symptoms. And I think it's so important for women who are, from the outside perspective, people might be like, wow, Christine's really got it together. Like she had this whole career and then she pivoted and now she's got a movie and she just went for it and it can and looks glamorous. Like it can have this appearance of total success. And the reality is there's so much that has to go into reaching that point, right? And so I appreciate you sharing from that place. And I always like to share that way too, because I think it's important for people to understand that getting to these levels requires a lot more of people sometimes than they realize. And so it's important to hear it because then when you're in it, then you're like, oh, right, this is actually normal. Like, I want it to be normal. Like, yes, you might feel kind of sick when you're pursuing a really big goal because it's super scary for your body. And that's normal. And then you'll move through it and then you'll have a new goal and then you'll feel that way again. And that's just the cycle that we enter, but it's an important cycle to just, I don't know, to understand and to see. So I'm so grateful that you shared that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels really good to have gotten to a place where I feel comfortable saying that.
Hmm.
That it's okay. It's yeah, self-love, self-forgiveness too. Again, of instead of being like, "Oh, why did I act like that? Oh my God, what did they think of me?" You know, what's that term where you feel like you like imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
all those things throughout my 20s and early 30s, definitely that was that was hard for me. But now, and that's such a gift of getting older too.
Hmm.
You start to care less, and now seeing, my parents aging, and it starts to hit you how fast life goes.
Yeah,
So
for
all the
sure.
things that have, like, what really matters here, right? Like,
Hmm.
does looking like this polished version of myself, like, is how important is that? And now with social media and stuff, I just feel like it's so boring and saturated. Of course, we always like to show our highlights, but a lot of people also feel disconnected,
Hmm.
and what connects us is like, let's just be real for a sec. Can we just be real for a sec? Like, it's okay. And if you feel like it's not okay, is there maybe judgment in you that you judge other people for not being okay or being vulnerable, right? There's always
Hmm.
something there when we're judging someone else.
For sure. Well, you reminded me of I don't know if you paid attention to the astronauts when they came back from Artemis and their whole journey, but one of the commander, I think it was the commander who said this, that he's like, there's this big dream, right? Like you're risking your life to go on this huge journey around the moon. And then he said, when you get out there and you're hundreds of thousands of miles away, all you want to do is get back to your family and your loved ones and your friends on Earth. And he's like, it's such a gift to be a human, and it was so powerful. I was like, "Oh my gosh." He did like an incredible crazy journey, and like that's what he came away with, and I was like, how we all need that reminder, that all
Yes.
these little things that we get caught up in and the stresses and stuff. It's like, like actually it's just a gift to be where we're at, and we actually get to keep choosing to be here and like moving forward and pushing into what's next for our lives, and like how cool.
It really is a gift. I
Mhm.
do. I love to think of, if I were on my deathbed, what are the things I would be thinking about?
Mhm.
Because those are the things that I should be prioritizing and doing. And
Mhm.
relationships is the main thing. And that's why I value them so much. That's why I wrote my
Yeah.
book. That's why I made the film that I made. It's all the relationships. It's all our memories. I think that's what we have to take with us. Everything else, it doesn't matter. And my husband's really good at that too. He's a really simple guy, and he just does the important things. Bikes to his friends' houses. They're in their 50s and they still help each other move. And I remember being shocked. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, can you call movers? We're like too old for this." But that's how you build community, is doing things like that. And he's really taught me a lot with staying grounded and really just focusing on those things that are really important, instead of sometimes going after the flashy things, which, I mean, those things are fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a gala. If someone wants to give me an award, I'll happily take it. But really getting back to connection, family, like dinner with family. There's this one quote I saw on Instagram, and it's been the most impactful, and I always keep it in the back of my head. It said, maybe the most evolved people are simply at home eating chicken wings with their family. I'm like, oh, I really, really like that. It's really simple. You're really, really lucky, I think, if
Mm.
you have people in your life. I'll just say, even just like one person in your life who's just a ride or die and they're there.
Mhm.
It is such a gift.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that line. That's awesome. Well, what a gift to have you on, and what a joy to have this conversation with you. I'm so grateful that you've shared your story with us. I'm so excited for you that the movie is out. You can find, what's the best way for people to find out more about what you're up to and what you're doing?
Sure. My Instagram is C Chang and Co. And if you're interested in the film titled Making Space, it also has an Instagram page titled Making Space Film. And we'll be announcing more festivals and screenings that we'll be at throughout the U.S. And we might also bring it over to Asia and Taiwan. It might be fun to do some stuff over
Cool.
there.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Awesome. Well, so good, Christine. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Go see her movie, go buy her book, follow her. I will definitely be keeping tabs on what you're up to. So thank you for being on the School of Self Worth.
Thank you so much, Nicole.